May 16, 1943, 9:28 p.m., 60 feet above the Möhne Reservoir, Germany, 240 miles per hour. Flight Lieutenant David Maltby holds his Lancaster bomber steady at an altitude so low that his tail gunner can see individual ripples on the water below, and every instinct he possesses is screaming that this is suicide. The math is simple and terrifying. He's flying a 4-engine heavy bomber weighing 30 tons at 240 miles per hour exactly 60 feet above water in total darkness, while German flak guns fire at him from towers flanking the dam ahead. His bomb aimer is trying to line up a weapon that has never been tested in combat, a 9,000-pound cylindrical bomb that's supposed to bounce across water like a stone skipping on a pond. Except this stone weighs as much as a truck and needs to impact the dam wall underwater to actually work. The margin for error is 0. 6 feet too high and the bomb overshoots. 6 feet too low and they hit the water and die instantly. 3 degrees off heading and they miss the dam entirely. 1 second too late releasing the bomb and it bounces over the dam. 1 second too early and it sinks before reaching the target. 8 minutes ago, Maltby watched Wing Commander Guy Gibson make the first attack run on this dam. Gibson's bomb bounced perfectly, struck the dam, sank to the correct depth, exploded underwater, and accomplished precisely nothing. The dam didn't break. The massive concrete wall absorbed the explosion like it was designed to do, which it was. German engineers built this dam to withstand exactly this kind of attack. 5 minutes ago, Flight Lieutenant John Hopgood made the second attack run. German flak caught his Lancaster just as he released his bomb. Maltby watched Hopgood's aircraft explode in midair, breaking in half. The forward section cartwheeling into the ground, while the tail section crashed into the hills beyond the dam. Hopgood and 4 of his 7 crew members died in approximately 3 seconds. The bomb bounced erratically across the reservoir, missed the dam entirely, and exploded harmlessly on the far shore. Now it's Maltby's turn. Third attack. 2 failures behind him. 1 more chance before the flak guns that just killed Hopgood's crew target his aircraft. Gibson is circling overhead, drawing German fire to give Maltby a clearer run, but the flak guns are tracking, and any second they'll find the range on Maltby's Lancaster. His bomb aimer, John Fort, lies prone in the nose of the aircraft. I press to the bomb's sight, watching the dam wall grow larger through the targeting marks. Left, left. Steady. Right a hair. Steady. Steady. Distance closing. Speed good. Height perfect. Hold it. Hold it. German tracers arc across the darkness. Streams of 20mm cannon fire, seeking the massive bomber silhouetted against the moonlit water. Some rounds spark off the water behind them. Some streak overhead. Some are getting close enough that Maltby can see individual shells passing the canopy. Bomb gone. The Lancaster lurches upward as 9,000 pounds of cylindrical steel drops away. Maltby pulls back on the yoke, climbing, turning, getting away from the flak guns that are now absolutely certain of his position and are filling the air with explosive shells designed to shred aluminum and flesh with equal efficiency. Behind them, in the seconds that feel like hours, the bomb does what Barnes Wallis promised it would do when he invented this weapon. It hits the water at exactly the right angle, at exactly the right speed. It bounces once, twice, 3 times. Each bounce takes it closer to the dam wall. The backspin Wallis engineered keeps it moving forward. On the 4th bounce, it strikes the dam wall, and instead of bouncing away, the backspin makes it roll down the face of the dam, sinking as it goes, exactly as designed. It reaches 30 feet below the surface, the depth where hydrostatic pressure will focus the explosion's force directly into the dam structure, and detonates. Not on the surface where the explosion would dissipate, not too deep where rock would absorb the blast. Exactly at the depth where 6,600 pounds of Torpex explosive will create a shockwave that hammers the dam wall from the most vulnerable angle. Maltby is turning away, gaining altitude, trying to escape the flak that's hunting his aircraft, when his rear gunner shouts over the intercom with a voice that breaks the trained calm every RAF airman learns to maintain. Jesus Christ. It's going. The dam's going. 3 bombs. 2 aircraft lost. 15 men dead. And now, at 9:49 p.m. on May 16, 1943, the Möhne Dam, one of the most important water sources in industrial Germany, holding back 140 million tons of water that power factories making guns, tanks, and ammunition for the Wehrmacht is breaking apart. This is Operation Chastise. The mission military strategists said was impossible. The attack that required inventing new physics, new engineering, and new tactics. The raid that will destroy German industrial capacity for months and prove that precision bombing can cripple infrastructure that conventional raids can't touch. The night's 617 Squadron flew into history by attacking targets that couldn't be attacked, using weapons that shouldn't work at altitudes that shouldn't be survivable, and succeeding despite odds that should have made this mission a footnote about British desperation rather than a legend about British audacity. The water is starting to pour through the breach in the dam. Not a trickle, not a leak. A catastrophic structural failure that will release 140 million tons of water into the Ruhr Valley within hours, flooding factories, destroying power stations, drowning towns, and temporarily crippling German industrial production in ways that conventional bombing could never achieve. But Maltby doesn't have time to watch the consequences. He's climbing, turning, trying to survive long enough to reach England. Behind him, the rest of 617 Squadron is lining up for attacks on two more dams, the Eder and the Sorp, that feed water and power to German industry. Ahead of him is 450 miles of flying over enemy territory defended by flak guns and night fighters that would love nothing more than to shoot down a damaged Lancaster limping home at low altitude. The mission that began with 19 Lancaster bombers 6 hours ago is about to change the war. Not through massive destruction, though the destruction will be massive. Not through killing enemy soldiers, those soldiers will die. But through proving that precision attacks against infrastructure can accomplish what 1,000-bomber raids against cities cannot. The specific destruction of specific targets that cripple military production while minimizing civilian casualties. But that's the strategic view. The tactical view, from inside Maltby's Lancaster at 9:50 p.m. as German flak continues hunting them, is simpler. They're still alive, the bomb worked, the dam is breaking, and now they need to survive the next 6 hours to reach England and find out if this insane mission actually accomplished what Air Marshal Harris promised it would. The water behind the dam is starting to move, not flowing, exploding through the breach, carrying everything in its path. And in approximately 30 minutes, that water is going to hit the first German town downstream with the force of biblical flood, sweeping away houses, factories, bridges, power stations, and thousands of people who have no idea what's coming because air raid sirens don't warn about dams breaking. This is the story of the Dambusters. The story of how 19 bomber crews attacked targets that couldn't be attacked using weapons that shouldn't work. The story of the inventor who refused to accept that physics made his idea impossible. The commander who trained his squadron to fly at altitudes that killed other crews. The bomber crews who flew into concentrated flak at 60 feet altitude because their orders said to and their training said they could. The story of the night the RAF proved that impossible just means nobody's figured out how to do it yet. The mission began 6 hours ago with 19 bombers taking off from RAF Scampton. It will end at dawn with 11 returning. 8 aircraft will be lost. 53 airmen will die. 3 will become prisoners of war. And the dams they attacked will be broken so thoroughly that German industry will suffer disruption for months. Water supplies will be compromised until war's end. And the psychological impact of proving that Germany's infrastructure isn't invulnerable will resonate through the Reich like the shockwave from Barnes Wallis's bouncing bombs. But right now, at 9:50 p.m., 60 feet above a German reservoir with flak guns tracking his aircraft and the dam breaking behind him, David Maltby is just trying to survive the next 10 minutes, wondering if the bounce bombing actually worked or if they just got lucky, and calculating whether they have enough fuel to reach England if they take the long way home to avoid the heaviest flak concentrations. The impossible mission is working. The dams are breaking. The war is changing. And 53 men are about to die, proving that audacity, training, and refusal to accept impossible can accomplish what conventional tactics cannot. This is their story. Every minute of it. Every decision that led to 19 bombers attacking 3 dams in one night. Every calculation that made bounce bombing theoretically possible. Every hour of training that made flying at 60 feet routine. Every bomb that struck or missed its target. Every aircraft that returned or didn't. Every man who survived or died. Every consequence that flowed from breaking dams that held back 140 million tons of water. The story begins not at 9:28 p.m. when Maltby attacked the Möhne Dam, but months earlier when an inventor named Barnes Wallis decided that German dams were vulnerable despite every engineer in Germany insisting they weren't. Barnes Wallis sits in his office at Vickers Aviation in early 1942, staring at reconnaissance photographs of German dams and thinking about physics. The dams are massive, concrete walls 40 meters high, 140 meters thick at the base, holding back reservoirs containing millions of tons of water. They're designed to withstand direct bombing. Conventional explosives dropped from altitude either miss entirely or hit the top of the dam where the concrete is thickest, and the explosion dissipates into air rather than damaging structure. Previous RAF raids tried bombing dams with standard high explosive bombs. Result: craters in the surrounding hillsides, minimal damage to dams, complete waste of aircraft and crews. The conclusion was obvious. Dams are too strong to bomb, too well defended to attack at low altitude, and too important for Germany to leave undefended. Military planners moved on to other targets. Wallis can't move on. He studied engineering his entire life. He understands structures. He knows dams have vulnerability that conventional bombing can't exploit, but unconventional bombing might. The vulnerability is underwater, at the base, where water pressure magnifies explosive force against the foundation. A bomb that explodes 30 feet underwater directly against the dam face creates shockwave that hammers the structure from below, where design is weakest, where water pressure helps rather than hindering the explosion. But getting bombs underwater and against the dam face is impossible. Bombs dropped from altitude hit the water and either bounce away from the dam or sink too deep before reaching the wall. Torpedoes can't be used because dams are protected by anti-torpedo nets that stop underwater weapons. Traditional weapons can't reach the vulnerable point. Wallis decides to invent a weapon that can, not modification of existing bombs. Entirely new weapon based on physics that military planners insist is impractical. A bomb that bounces across water like a skipping stone, passes over anti-torpedo nets, strikes the dam wall while still moving forward, then sinks to the optimal depth where underwater explosion focuses maximum force against the structure. It's insane. Bombs don't bounce. Water doesn't behave predictably enough for controlled bouncing. The margins for error are too tight. The weapon would need to be released at exact height, exact speed, exact distance from target. Any deviation means missing. The aircraft would need to fly at suicidal altitudes in perfect straight lines while flak guns shoot at them. The crews would need training beyond anything RAF currently provides. The weapon itself requires engineering that doesn't exist. Wallis spends months calculating trajectories, testing scale models and water tanks, refining designs. His colleagues think he's wasting time on impossible physics. Military planners refuse funding because the weapon can't work. Wallis persists because the math says it can work if someone solves approximately 11 apparently unsolvable problems simultaneously. He solves them one at a time. The bomb shape, cylindrical rather than traditional bomb shape, which allows controlled bouncing. The release mechanism, delayed fusing so explosion happens underwater rather than on impact. The spin, backspin applied before release, keeps the bomb moving forward after initial bounces. The targeting system, lights mounted on the aircraft fuselage that create visual markers for altitude. The delivery altitude, 60 feet above water, low enough for accurate placement, but high enough to avoid immediate crash. The delivery speed, 240 miles per hour, fast enough for controlled bounces, but slow enough for bombers to fly precisely. Each solution creates new problems. Cylindrical bombs require modified bomb bays. Backspin requires hydraulic systems that don't exist yet. 60-foot altitude at 240 miles per hour in darkness requires navigation skills that most RAF crews don't have. Attacking at that altitude in defended airspace is suicidal unless crews are trained specifically for low-level precision flying. Wallis brings his calculations to Air Ministry in early 1943, argues that dam breaking is achievable with specialized weapon and specialized training, and somehow convinces them to authorize one trial operation. One squadron, one mission. Prove the concept or abandon it entirely. Air Marshal Arthur Harris, commander of RAF Bomber Command, assigns Wing Commander Guy Gibson to form and train a special squadron for dam attacks. Gibson is 24 years old, has flown more combat missions than most pilots fly in a career, has survived more near-death experiences than should be statistically possible, and has exactly 7 weeks to create a squadron capable of flying at 60 feet in darkness, navigating over enemy territory at treetop level, and attacking heavily defended dams with experimental weapons that might not work. Gibson handpicks crews from across Bomber Command, selecting pilots with low-altitude experience, navigators with precision timing skills, bomb aimers with steady nerves. He forms 617 Squadron in March 1943 at RAF Scampton with 19 Lancaster crews, 133 men total, who have no idea they're being trained for mission that will either go down as the most successful precision raid in military history or as catastrophic failure that kills most of them. Training begins immediately and quickly becomes notorious across Bomber Command. Most Lancaster operations involve flying at 20,000 feet, where altitude provides safety from flak. Gibson trains his crews to fly at 60 feet, low enough that bombers leave wakes across lakes, low enough that navigation errors mean hitting hills, low enough that every training flight feels like suicide practice. They practice over reservoirs in England and Wales, flying at exact altitude, exact speed, learning to judge 60 feet by eye because altimeters aren't accurate at that height. They practice navigation at treetop level because flying over Germany at 60 feet means landmarks pass in seconds rather than minutes. They practice formation flying in darkness because the mission requires multiple aircraft attacking simultaneously. They practice until flying bombers 60 feet above water at 240 miles per hour becomes routine rather than terrifying. They still don't know what they're training for. Gibson can't tell them. Security requires absolute silence about targets and weapons. Crews know they're training for low-altitude precision attack against unknown targets using unknown weapons. They accept this because Gibson is commanding and Gibson's survival record suggests he knows what he's doing. The weapon arrives in early May, less than 2 weeks before the mission. Wallis delivers his bouncing bomb, officially called Upkeep, and crews see for the first time what they'll be dropping. The weapon is bizarre. Cylindrical, massive, 9,000 pounds of steel casing containing 6,600 pounds of Torpex explosive, mounted in special racks that apply backspin before release, requiring precise release parameters that become the focus of final training. Gibson gathers his crews on May 15th, the day before the mission, and finally explains what they're attacking. German dams. 3 primary targets, the Möhne, Eder, and Sorp. Multiple reserve targets if primary dams are destroyed quickly. The mission requires flying 450 miles into Germany at low altitude, attacking dams defended by flak guns, flying 450 miles back, all in a single night, when moon conditions allow visual navigation, and German night fighters will be hunting any aircraft they detect. The briefing reveals numbers that make clear how desperate this mission is. German flak defenses around the Möhne Dam include multiple 20mm cannon positions with overlapping fields of fire. The approach to the dam requires flying straight at it, maintaining exact altitude and speed, making evasive maneuvers impossible. Once the first aircraft attacks, every subsequent aircraft faces guns that know exactly where to aim. Intelligence estimates suggest first aircraft has reasonable chance. Second aircraft has poor chance. Third aircraft and beyond are attacking into prepared defenses that know the attack pattern. Expected losses, 50%. Half the crews that take off won't return. 10 aircraft, 70 men. Gibson asks if anyone wants to withdraw. Nobody does. They've trained for 7 weeks. They trust Gibson. They trust Wallis's math. They trust their training. 50% losses sound acceptable when the target is German industrial capacity and the weapon might actually work. May 16, 1943, 9:28 p.m. 19 Lancaster bombers have been in the air for 3.5 hours, flying across occupied Europe at altitudes between 60 and 150 feet, navigating by moonlight, somehow avoiding detection by German radar that's designed to track high-altitude bombers and frequently misses anything below 200 feet. 3 aircraft have already been lost before reaching the dams. Flight Lieutenant Bill Estelle hit power lines crossing the Dutch countryside, crashed, killed instantly with all crew. Flight Sergeant Louis Burpee's aircraft was hit by flak over the Dutch coast, crashed, and burned. Flight Lieutenant Bill Otley was shot down by flak approaching the target area. 8 aircraft down before the actual attacks began. 56 men dead. The 50% casualty estimate is becoming reality before crews even reach their targets. The remaining 16 aircraft are divided into 3 waves. The first wave, Gibson's personal group, targets the Möhne Dam. 9 aircraft tasked with breaking through the most heavily defended dam in Germany. Second wave targets the Eder Dam. Third wave targets the Sorp Dam or reserve targets, depending on whether first wave succeeds. Gibson makes his attack run at 9:28 p.m. Perfect execution. Bomb bounces exactly as designed, strikes the dam, sinks, explodes. The dam shudders but doesn't break. German engineers built well. One bomb isn't enough. John Hopgood attacks at 9:38 p.m. Flak finds his aircraft. The Lancaster explodes in midair. Hopgood, his navigator, his wireless operator, and his flight engineer die instantly. 3 crew members escape the falling aircraft, parachute into German-controlled territory, become prisoners of war. The bomb bounces erratically, misses the dam, explodes harmlessly. 2 attacks, 2 failures, 1 aircraft lost. David Maltby attacks at 9:47 p.m. His bomb bounces perfectly, strikes the dam, sinks, explodes. The dam shudders again. Cracks appear but don't propagate. Still not broken. 3 attacks, 3 bombs, still holding. Squadron leader Melvin Dingy Young attacks at 9:57 p.m. 4th bomb. 4th impact. The accumulated damage from 3 previous explosions means this one finally exceeds what the structure can withstand. The dam breaks. Not slowly. Catastrophically. A section of the wall collapses entirely. 140 million tons of water start pouring through the breach. Gibson circles overhead, confirms the breach is massive and growing, radios back to base. Nigger. The code word meaning Möhne Dam destroyed. 8 more aircraft remain in his wave. He diverts them to the Eder Dam. The Eder Dam presents different challenges. Less flak, but more difficult approach. The dam sits in a valley with hills on both sides. Attack runs require diving into the valley, pulling level at 60 feet, releasing the bomb, then climbing steeply to avoid hitting hills beyond the dam. In darkness, at 240 miles per hour, with bomb aimer trying to maintain targeting precision while the aircraft maneuvers violently. Flight Lieutenant David Shannon makes the first attack run on the Eder. His approach is wrong, too high, wrong angle. He aborts, circles, tries again. Second approach is better, but still not perfect. He aborts again. Third approach is perfect. Bomb released, bounces twice, strikes the dam, sinks, explodes. The dam shudders, but doesn't break. Squadron leader Henry Maudslay makes the second attack. His bomb is released slightly late. Instead of bouncing across the reservoir, it bounces over the dam entirely, exploding on the downstream side where it damages the power station but doesn't break the dam. Worse, Maudslay's aircraft is caught in the explosion of his own bomb. The Lancaster suffers massive damage, limps away from the target, and crashes before reaching England. Maudslay and all crew die. Flight Lieutenant Les Knight makes the third attack on the Eder. Perfect approach. Perfect release. The bomb bounces beautifully, strikes dead center, sinks, explodes. The Eder Dam breaks. Concrete fragments fly. Water starts pouring through. Gibson radios base, Dingy. Code word meaning Eder destroyed. 2 dams broken. 8 aircraft lost by this point in the mission. But the bouncing bomb concept is proven. Wallis's physics work. The training works. The question now is whether the cost is justified by the results. The third wave targets the Sorp Dam, a different design that requires different tactics. The Sorp is earth and clay construction rather than concrete, which means bounce bombing won't work. The bomb needs to explode against the dam rather than underwater. 5 aircraft diverted to the Sorp attack it with different technique, flying along the dam's length and releasing bombs to skip along the crest, hoping repeated impacts will breach the structure. Flight Lieutenant Joe McCarthy makes 6 attack runs on the Sorp, finally releasing his bomb on the 7th pass. It explodes against the dam crest, creating massive crater but not breaking through. Other aircraft in the third wave attack, but achieve only minor damage. The SORP remains intact, though weakened enough that German engineers will spend months reinforcing it. By midnight, the mission is effectively complete. 2 major dams destroyed, 1 damaged but not broken. Multiple reserve targets hit with varying success. The surviving aircraft begin the long flight back to England, flying low over German territory, hoping that surviving the attack doesn't mean dying on the flight home. They still lose aircraft to flak and night fighters. Flight Lieutenant Louis Burpee. No, that was earlier. Flight Lieutenant Otley, also earlier. By the time dawn breaks on May 17th and the surviving bombers start landing at RAF Scampton, the accounting is brutal but successful. 19 aircraft took off. 11 returned. 8 lost. 53 men dead. 3 prisoners of war. 2 dams destroyed. 1 damaged. German industrial production in the Ruhr Valley disrupted for months. Hydroelectric power offline. Water supplies compromised. Factories flooded. Transportation infrastructure destroyed. And the psychological impact of proving that German infrastructure isn't invulnerable reverberates through the Reich. The water from the Möhne Dam destruction travels down the Ruhr Valley at approximately 20 feet per second, destroying everything in its path. Towns are flooded. Factories are swept away. Bridges collapse. Power stations are inundated. The flood kills approximately 1,600 people, mostly foreign workers housed near the river. The destruction reaches 50 miles downstream before the water disperses enough to stop causing catastrophic damage. The Eder Dam break causes similar flooding in the Eder Valley, destroying villages, sweeping away infrastructure, killing hundreds. The combined water releases create the worst flooding in German recorded history, accomplished not through natural disaster, but through precision military action. German response is immediate. Hermann Göring, commander of the Luftwaffe, reportedly refuses to believe initial reports, insisting dams can't be breached by bombing. When aerial reconnaissance confirms both dams are destroyed, he orders immediate investigation into how RAF accomplished it. German engineers study the breaches, recover fragments of bouncing bombs, analyze the attack technique, and conclude with grim accuracy that British have developed precision weapon capable of attacking infrastructure previously thought invulnerable. German military immediately begins reinforcing every major dam in the Reich with additional flak guns, anti-torpedo nets extended to cover approach routes, and protocols for rapid response to any future attacks. They also begin contingency planning for operating industrial centers without the water and power supplies they've taken for granted. The psychological impact is profound. If dams can be destroyed, what else previously thought safe is actually vulnerable. RAF response is complicated. The mission succeeded beyond reasonable hope. 2 dams destroyed, 1 damaged, German industry disrupted. But the cost was severe. 8 aircraft lost, 53 men dead, 42% casualties. The success validates bounce bombing as concept, but the losses make clear this tactic only works once. German defenses will adapt. Future dam attacks would face prepared defenders who know exactly what to expect. 617 Squadron becomes famous overnight. The surviving crews are celebrated as heroes. Guy Gibson receives the Victoria Cross. Multiple other decorations are awarded. The mission becomes propaganda victory for Britain, demonstrating that RAF can conduct precision attacks that cripple German war production. Newspapers call them the Dambusters. The name sticks. But for the survivors, the celebration is complicated by the memory of empty seats at the debriefing, by knowing that the bouncing bomb worked because men died testing it under fire, by understanding that their success was purchased with the lives of 53 airmen who flew into concentrated flak at 60 feet because their orders said to. Barnes Wallis, the inventor, whose calculations made the mission possible, reportedly breaks down crying when told the casualty figures. He designed weapons to destroy infrastructure, not to kill the men delivering those weapons. The success of his invention is inseparable from the deaths of men who proved it worked. He considers abandoning weapons design entirely, then decides that abandoning it won't bring dead men back, but continuing it might save future lives if his designs reduce casualties in subsequent operations. The strategic impact of the dam's raid extends beyond immediate destruction. German industrial capacity in the Ruhr Valley is disrupted for approximately 5 months. Factories can't operate without water and power. Production of tanks, guns, ammunition, and aircraft declines significantly. The German war machine suffers measurable setback that Allied conventional bombing had failed to achieve. More importantly, the raid proves that precision attacks against infrastructure work. Prior to this, RAF Bomber Command focused primarily on area bombing of cities, accepting that precision attacks were too difficult to execute effectively. The Dams raid demonstrates that with proper weapons, proper training, and proper tactics, precision attacks can accomplish what thousand-bomber raids cannot. This leads to increased emphasis on targeted attacks against specific German facilities rather than general destruction of urban areas. The ripple effects continue. The U.S. Army Air Force studies the Dams raid extensively, applying lessons to their own precision bombing doctrine. The concept of specialized units trained for specific high-value targets becomes standard. 617 Squadron itself continues operating throughout the war, conducting precision raids against battleships, submarine pins, V-weapon sites, and other strategic targets, suffering additional casualties but consistently accomplishing missions that conventional bombers can't achieve. The legacy of the Dambusters extends beyond World War II into modern military doctrine. The concept of precision strikes against infrastructure, the use of specialized weapons for specific targets, the training of elite units for high-risk missions, all trace lineage back to Operation Chastise, and the Night 617 Squadron proved that impossible missions become possible when someone refuses to accept that impossible means impossible. The human cost remains. 53 men died that night. Most were in their early 20s. Most had flown dozens of previous combat missions and survived, only to die attacking dams in experimental aircraft using experimental weapons. Their names are recorded on memorials. Their families receive telegrams regretting to inform them. Their sacrifice is remembered not because they died heroically, but because they accomplished something genuinely important. They broke German dams that couldn't be broken, using weapons that shouldn't work, at altitudes that shouldn't be survivable, and in doing so prove that audacity combined with skill can achieve what conventional tactics cannot. David Maltby, whose bomb broke the Möhne Dam on the third attack, survived the mission and flew additional operations with 617 Squadron. He died 5 months later when his Lancaster was shot down over the English Channel returning from a raid on France. He was 23 years old. Guy Gibson, who commanded the raid and flew the most dangerous first attack on each dam to draw fire from subsequent aircraft, survived and was taken off combat operations due to his propaganda value. He was killed in September 1944 when the Mosquito he was flying crashed in Holland. He was 26 years old. Barnes Wallis, whose calculations made the bouncing bomb possible, lived until 1979, continuing weapons design throughout and after the war, always remembering that his greatest success cost 53 lives in a single night. The dams were repaired by Germany with massive labor input, but never regained full capacity. The Möhne was rebuilt by September 1943, but at reduced height, providing less water storage. The Eder was rebuilt, but remained vulnerable to future attacks, requiring constant German resources for defense that could have been deployed elsewhere. The Sorp, which wasn't breached, was reinforced so extensively that it became more resource-drained than strategic asset. The final accounting of Operation Chastise shows success measured not just in destroyed infrastructure, but in strategic impact, psychological effect, and proof of concept. 2 major dams destroyed. German industrial production disrupted for months. Precision bombing validated as tactic. Specialized units proven effective for high-value targets. Enemy forced to divert resources to defending infrastructure previously thought safe. The cost: 8 aircraft, 53 men, and the knowledge that success in war is frequently purchased with lives of those who accomplish it. The lesson: impossible missions become possible when someone invents the necessary physics. Someone else trains crews beyond standard limits. And 133 men volunteer to fly into concentrated flak at 60 feet, because their orders say to and their training says they can. The legacy: every precision strike, every specialized military unit, every mission where someone says, "This can't be done," and someone else responds, "Watch me do it." All trace intellectual lineage back to the night 617 Squadron attacked German dams with bouncing bombs and proved that impossible just means nobody's figured out how yet. May 16th to 17th, 1943. One night, 19 bombers, 3 dams, 2 destroyed, 8 aircraft lost, 53 dead, and a lesson written in water, explosive, and the lives of men who flew at 60 feet into concentrated flak because the mission required it, and they trusted their training enough to believe they might survive. They didn't all survive, but enough survived to prove the concept, to break the dams, to change the war, and to demonstrate forever that audacity, skill, and refusal to accept impossible can accomplish what conventional wisdom says can't be done. That's the story of the Dambusters. Not clean heroism, but messy success. Not costless victory, but expensive achievement. Not simple narrative of good defeating evil, but complicated reality of men dying to accomplish mission that military planners said couldn't be accomplished, using weapons that physicists said couldn't work, at altitudes that pilots said weren't survivable. They accomplished it anyway. The dams broke. The war changed. 53 men died. And 80 years later, their success remains template for anyone attempting impossible missions. Prepare thoroughly, train relentlessly, refuse to accept that impossible means impossible, and understand that success might cost everything, but attempting it costs less than accepting defeat without trying.